They paid for my brother's matching Groomsmen watches, but told me I'd draw attention if I wore that necklace, so I walked out, took the catering I paid $2,200 for, and by dawn, my cousin texted, "She's having a breakdown." "What did you do?" My younger brother, Cyrus, 33 male, got married in late May. He married Daniela, his longtime girlfriend who he's known since high school. I used to think she was okay, never particularly warm to me, but not rude either. We were cordial. I wouldn't call us close. I'm the oldest of three, myself, Cyrus, and our youngest sibling Noelle, 28 female. Our parents, Miriam and Doug, are both retired now. Mom was a high school guidance counselor. Dad taught industrial arts, shop. Very small town, very tight-knit, and very invested in appearances. Growing up, I was the black sheep, not because I was reckless or rebellious in a traditional sense, but because I questioned things. I didn't want to get married young, didn't want to stay in town, didn't see the point in living a life that felt inherited. I always loved art. I started making jewelry in college, sold pieces on Etsy, did pop-up shops at markets, and eventually turned it into my full-time business. It's successful. I'm not rich, but I do well, and I live independently in Durham with a studio space and no debt. My parents never quite understood what I did, and they never really asked. I've always felt like I was a footnote in family events. Present, but not included. Cyrus, meanwhile, could do no wrong. He played football, dated girls my parents liked, got a business degree, came back home and started a small construction company with a friend. He and Daniela had their lives planned out by 25. They were the golden couple. I didn't resent that, at least not consciously, but I started noticing how differently we were treated. Fast forward to earlier this year, when Cyrus and Daniela got engaged. The whole thing was big by small-town standards. They were doing a big church wedding in Asheville with over 150 guests, and I got a call from my mom saying, "We're so excited, and we hope you'll be there and feel involved." I asked if there was anything I could help with. I offered to cover the rehearsal dinner catering. That was something I could afford, and I thought it would be a meaningful gift. They accepted. I paid $2,200 out of pocket, in advance, for a local caterer I had worked with before. Done. No drama. Or so I thought. From the moment I arrived in town 3 days before the wedding, the vibe was off. I stayed in an Airbnb just outside Asheville, about 20 minutes from the venue. I figured it was better than staying at my parents' house where things tend to be tense. On the first day back, we had brunch at my mom's. It was me, Mom, Dad, Cyrus, Daniela, Noelle, and Daniela's parents. My mom was in full hostess mode, and everyone was making small talk, which quickly drifted into wedding planning chaos. I was mostly quiet, sipping coffee and listening. That's when Noelle leaned in and said, in a half-whisper, "So, Daniela's mom is kind of freaking out about the necklace you said you're wearing?" I blinked. "What?" Noelle shrugged. "She saw a photo of it on your website." "The gold one?" "She thinks it's a bit much." "That necklace is more than jewelry. It's a family heirloom, a delicate gold chain with an aquamarine pendant that belonged to my great-grandmother May. She wore it at her wedding in 1947. My mom had it in her safe for years and always told me she'd pass it down to me one day. It's the only piece of jewelry I plan to wear. Nothing flashy. No earrings, no bangles, just that necklace with a deep blue satin dress." I said, "It's a family piece." Mom said it was mine. Noelle just gave me a look like, "Don't shoot the messenger." I brushed it off. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. The next day, I arrived at the wedding party's final dinner rehearsal. I wasn't at the wedding party. Not a bridesmaid, not a reader, not even giving a toast. I had assumed, as the groom's only sister, I'd at least be involved somehow. Nope. I was seated at a back table with distant cousins. After dinner, they brought out gift boxes for the groomsmen. Each got an engraved fossil watch. I didn't care about the watch, but it was another moment that made me feel external. Like I'd shown up to a club I didn't belong to. I said, quietly, "Those are nice. Must have been pricey." My mom looked over and said, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "We just wanted them to feel appreciated. They're part of the ceremony." I swallowed whatever was rising in my throat and nodded. That night, back at my Airbnb, I took out Grandma May's necklace and laid it on the dresser. I held it in my palm for a long time. I told myself I'd still wear it. That it was important. That if I let them make me small again, I'd regret it. The next morning, wedding day, I showed up to the venue early. I wore a long navy blue gown, simple heels, hair pinned back, and the necklace. Just the necklace. As soon as I walked in, I felt the tension. Daniela's mother, Teresa, saw me and made a beeline. She smiled, but there was something tight and performative about it. "Oh, Ria. That's very bold. Are you planning to wear that during the ceremony?" I replied, "Yes. It's a family heirloom." Teresa's lips thinned. "It's just, the photographer will have to work around it. It might draw focus." That's when Daniela walked over. Her smile was real, but her eyes darted to the necklace immediately. "Hey," she said softly. "I totally get that it's special. It's beautiful. I kind of hoped all eyes would be on me today, you know?" I froze. For a moment, I waited for someone, anyone, to say, "Come on, it's her great-grandmother's necklace, let it go." But Cyrus just stood there. He looked at me and gave a weak shrug. A shrug. I turned to Daniela and said, "Sure. No problem." Then I walked out. I didn't say another word. I drove straight to the caterer. The contract was in my name. My money. I asked them not to deliver to the venue. I told them to redirect everything to my Airbnb. They hesitated at first, but legally, it was my event. So they did. I texted my cousin Becca, who had flown in from Texas and wasn't part of the wedding party either. I told her what happened and said, "If you want a real dinner, come to my place. Bring whoever's hungry." That night, 10 of us gathered around the dining table at my Airbnb. Friends, cousins, and neighbors who weren't even invited to the rehearsal dinner. We had brisket, cornbread, coleslaw, pies, and iced tea. I wore grandma's necklace and poured wine and didn't pretend to feel included anymore. We laughed. We cried a little. We talked about our parents, about growing up in a small town, about feeling like we never fit. It wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. I didn't ruin their wedding. I just stopped erasing myself to protect other people's comfort. Around 6 a.m. the next morning, my phone buzzed. Becca had texted, "She's having a breakdown." "What did you do?" I stared at it for a long time. Becca's text woke me up around dawn, "She's having a breakdown." What did you do? For a second, I wasn't sure who she was. Daniela? My mom? Then I checked my phone, missed calls from Noelle, one from my dad, two from a number I didn't recognize but later figured out was Teresa, Daniela's mother. A few voicemails, though none from Cyrus. The one person I thought might at least ask me directly what had happened hadn't even bothered. I didn't listen to the voicemails right away. Instead, I just lay there in bed, staring at the sunlight coming through the Airbnb curtains, still in the dress from the night before, necklace resting against my collarbone like it belonged there. I remember thinking, this is the calmest I've felt in months. Maybe years. Around 9 a.m., I finally listened to one of the messages, my mom's voice, brittle and cold, saying, "I don't know what got into you, Ria. After everything we did to include you. This was not the time for one of your statements. You've embarrassed the family, and you hurt Cyrus. I hope you're happy. Everything they did to include me?" I listened to it again just to be sure I wasn't mishearing it. Then I opened the one from my dad, shorter but sharper, that was petty and vindictive. "You knew how important that dinner was. You humiliated your brother. You made this about you." Still no message from Cyrus. I didn't respond. I packed slowly, took my time folding the tablecloths, scraping leftovers into containers, bagging everything up so I could donate it later to a nearby shelter in town. Becca came by around noon with coffee and a look that was part amazed, part sympathetic. "I think they think you ruined the wedding," she said, handing me the iced latte. I raised an eyebrow. "They think I ruined the wedding because I wore a necklace and hosted a dinner I paid for in my own Airbnb?" Becca nodded. "Yep. Daniela cried all morning. Her mom says she might not go through with the reception." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of the absurdity. Then she probably shouldn't be getting married. I wasn't trying to be cruel. But I realized something in that moment, I didn't belong in their carefully curated version of family. I never had. Every time I tried to contribute, I was told I was too much, or not enough. I dressed too boldly, spoke too directly, and lived too independently. Meanwhile, Cyrus, who never once reached out to see how I felt about being left out of everything, just kept coasting through the celebration of his perfect life. I drove back to Durham that afternoon. It was a long, quiet drive, and the silence felt good. I didn't play music. I didn't call anyone. I just let the road unspool beneath me, mile by mile. The fallout didn't end there. The following Monday, I opened my inbox to a formal message from Daniela's aunt, whom I'd met maybe 3 times in my life, expressing profound disappointment at my behavior. I let that one sit unread. Noelle finally called that evening. She sounded tired. "I'm not saying you were wrong," she said, "but, wow, Rhea. You blew it all up." "Did I?" I asked. "Or did I just stop pretending I was okay being left on the outskirts?" There was silence on the line. "You know how they are," she said finally. "You know how Mom gets. You know Dad doesn't like scenes." "And Daniela didn't want me there, Noelle," I interrupted. "Not really. She wanted me to show up, wear a dress she approved, smile politely, and sit 4 rows back like a seat filler. I was a name on a list. They never asked me to be part of the wedding, or to contribute, or to speak. They only remembered me when it came time to pay for dinner." "I think Cyrus is mad," she added. "He told people you sabotaged the event." I laughed, but it came out bitter. "Well," I said, "then I guess I got my money's worth." A week later, I got a handwritten card in the mail from my mom. Not an apology. A letter that started with, "I don't know what you were trying to prove." She went on to say she hoped I would reflect and reconsider how my actions affect others. She even said Cyrus was still hurt and confused, and that I had made the day about myself. I tore the letter in half and tossed it in the recycling bin. 2 days after that, Cyrus finally texted. "Hope you made it home okay." That was it. No apology. No explanation. Not even a question about why I did what I did. And you know what? That one text told me everything I needed to know. I didn't respond. In the days since, I've had a few quiet moments of doubt. A flicker of guilt here, a pang of sadness there. Not because I think I was wrong, but because I wanted it to be different. I wanted to believe that showing up mattered. That trying, really trying, to be present, generous, loving, would eventually count for something. Instead, what I learned was this: when you've been cast in a role you didn't audition for, quiet, compliant, secondary, you'll never be celebrated for stepping outside it. They won't cheer you for finding your voice. They'll call you difficult. They'll call you selfish. They'll say you made a scene. They'll tell you it was your choice not to belong, when the truth is, they never gave you a place to begin with. I still wear the necklace. Every day now, actually. Not out of spite. But because I've decided to claim what's mine, even if it means I have to carry it alone. The Monday after the wedding, I went quiet. I turned off Instagram for a few days, let my phone go to voicemail, and just kept my head down at work. My jewelry orders had been piling up. Ironically, the necklace I wore at the Airbnb dinner had drawn a bunch of attention after I posted a photo on my business account. A boutique in Charleston reached out asking if I could make a small run of heirloom-inspired aquamarine pieces. So, while my family back in Asheville was dissecting what I did like it was a criminal case, I was melting gold in my studio, shaping tiny chains with quiet hands, trying to stay grounded in something real. But the silence didn't last long. On Thursday, I got a call from Aunt Marion, my mom's older sister who lives in Santa Rosa, California. I hadn't spoken to her in nearly a year, but she's always been the one relative who sees through the family's facade. She's the kind of person who sends you a birthday card with a real handwritten message, not just "Love, Aunt Marion." I picked up, expecting small talk. But as soon as I said hello, she went straight in. "Rhea, I just got off the phone with your mother. Do you have a minute?" I sighed. "Sure. Let me guess," she said, "I ruined the wedding." Marion chuckled dryly. "Oh, honey. She said you sabotaged it. That you withheld food as punishment and upstaged the bride with a necklace." That last part made me pause. She really said she was upset. Verbatim. I told her everything. From the groomsmen's watches, to the necklace conversation, to the catering switch, to Cyrus never saying a word. When I finished, she didn't respond for a moment. Then she said, "You know, Rhea, I always knew they didn't quite get you. But I didn't realize how far they'd go to keep you out." I felt something crack inside me then. Not pain, exactly, but a kind of tired relief. Like I wasn't crazy for noticing the imbalance all these years. Marian added, "When your mom told me you refused to participate and made it all about yourself, I asked her, did you ask Rhea to participate in the first place?" She didn't like that question. I smiled. No. She wouldn't. Marian then offered something unexpected. "I think you should write to Cyrus. Not for them. For yourself. Say what you need to say. Then be done with it." I didn't respond right away. But I thought about it for the rest of the day. I sat with that idea for a week. Every time I opened a blank email, my fingers hovered. What do you even say to someone who didn't see you? Who watched you walk away without asking why? But eventually, I wrote. Not to seek forgiveness. Not even to explain. Just to make sure that if I ever looked back, I knew I didn't leave without saying the truth. Here's what I sent. Subject: for the record, Cyrus, I wasn't going to write. I didn't think it would matter. But Aunt Marian made a good point. If I'm going to move forward, I should say what needs to be said. You watched it all happen. From the seating arrangement to the gift giving to the necklace drama. And you never once asked me how I felt. You didn't even text me when I left. I offered to pay for the rehearsal dinner because I wanted to feel part of something. Not to prove anything. Not to show off. Just to contribute, like family does. And when I realized I wasn't considered family in any meaningful way, I took back what I gave. I made space for people who see me. You may think I was dramatic. You may think I ruined something. But here's the thing, I didn't ruin your wedding. I just stopped pretending I was welcome. I hope you're happy in your marriage. I really do. But if you ever wonder why your kids don't know their aunt someday, remember that silence isn't neutral. It's a choice. And you chose not to see me. Rhea. He didn't respond. At least, not directly. A day later, Noelle texted. Cyrus showed Daniela your email. She cried again. Mom's furious. Just so you know. Just so I know. I almost laughed. Cried again? What about me crying alone in my car at a rest stop on the way back to Durham? What about every time I've had to shove down the feeling of being othered by my own blood? But I didn't reply to Noelle. I didn't reply to anyone. I just let it all sit. And then, something unexpected happened. I got an Instagram DM from someone named Leah. The name was familiar, but it took me a second. She was one of Daniela's bridesmaids. I hadn't even spoken to her at the wedding events. She wrote, Hey Rhea. I know we don't really know each other. But I wanted to say I thought you handled that whole thing with grace. I was in the dressing room when Daniela said the necklace would make her look like a Target model next to you. Honestly, it was gross. And I'm sorry you were treated that way. My heart dropped. So it wasn't about etiquette. Or attention. It was insecurity. Control. I replied, thanking her for reaching out. She didn't have to. But she did. And that meant more than she probably realized. A few days after that, I had dinner with a group of women friends in Durham. Artists, small business owners, women I've known for years. One of them asked casually, how was the wedding? And I said, without skipping a beat, liberating. We all laughed. I told them a little. Not everything. Just enough. And then we moved on to wine and pizza and what makes a good first date after 35. It's now been almost 3 weeks since the wedding. I still haven't heard from my mom or dad. No apology. No olive branch. Just silence. Cyrus sent a text 3 days ago, hope we can talk soon. Maybe when things settle. I haven't responded. Because I don't know if things should settle. Sometimes silence is the result of peace. Other times, it's the only way to survive a storm you didn't create. There's still more to unpack. The aftermath isn't over. But for the first time in years, I don't feel like I'm chasing acceptance from people who only offer it in fragments. So. The Facebook post. About 10 days after I sent that email to Cyrus, I got a DM from another cousin, Miles, who lives in Atlanta and barely speaks to our side of the family except at funerals and the occasional Christmas. He sent me a screenshot of a post my mother had put up. It was a long paragraph, written in that flowery faux gracious tone older Southern women sometimes use when they want to weaponize etiquette. It read, "This mother's heart is heavy. It's hard when you raise your children with love and grace, only to be blindsided by behavior that seems to have no regard for the kindness extended. We are choosing to move forward with peace and forgiveness in our hearts. Family means everything. But sometimes, even families need to be reminded of their place." She had tagged Cyrus and Daniela. Didn't tag me. Didn't need to. It was so transparent it was almost laughable. I didn't respond. But the comment section lit up. A few of her church friends chimed in with predictable prayers and clucking sympathy. But then, buried about 7 comments down, was Aunt Marion. She wrote, "Reminders of place are not the same as love. And being a parent doesn't make one exempt from reflection." Boom. She didn't tag me either, but everyone knew what she meant. It stayed up for about 6 hours before Mom deleted the entire post. The next day, her profile photo changed to an image of sunflowers and a quote about rising above negativity. Classic. Noelle called me that night. "You saw that, right?" she asked. Her voice sounded tired. "I did. She's still spinning this like you were out for blood." "I wore a necklace, Noelle." She paused, then exhaled. "I know. I'm not defending them. Honestly, after this, I've started seeing things differently too." We talked for 2 hours. I think for the first time in years, we actually talked like sisters. She told me she'd been the good one for so long, and it never occurred to her that her role only existed because I'd been cast as the difficult one. It's funny how you grow up thinking family dynamics are just part of life, like weather patterns. You don't realize until much later that sometimes those storms are being created, not just endured. Now here's where the real revenge, quiet, clean, satisfying, started to unfold. I mentioned earlier that after the Airbnb dinner, I posted a photo to my business account wearing the aquamarine necklace. It wasn't posed or styled, just me at the table, smiling, surrounded by candles and empty plates. The caption read, "Not all family dinners go as planned. But sometimes, the unexpected ones are the most meaningful." The post went modestly viral. I don't mean millions of likes, but it got shared around enough in the local and indie design communities that 3 boutiques reached out to carry a new line. Then a mid-sized lifestyle influencer reposted it with the comment, "We love women who say no to shrinking themselves." Orders started flooding in. Custom heirloom-inspired pieces, requests for wedding gifts, anniversary sets. In 1 week, I made back twice what I'd spent on the catering. By the end of the month, I was contacted by a regional magazine in Raleigh that wanted to do a feature on artisans reclaiming legacy through design. Guess what necklace was on the cover photo? I didn't name names in the interview. I didn't have to. I talked about family heirlooms, generational silence, and the power of saying no without explanation. The best revenge, I've learned, is not proving someone wrong. It's living a life where their approval no longer holds value. About 2 months later, I got an invitation in the mail. It was thick, ivory cardstock with gold calligraphy. "Cyrus and Daniela invite you to a post-wedding reception and family celebration." Post-wedding. Meaning, they had never gotten to do their full reception the night of, because things had gone sideways. The DJ cancelled. Daniela had cried through most of it. A lot of guests left early, confused and underfed. Apparently, word spread that the bride's family had conflicted with the groom's sister, and people just made quiet exits. And now, they are trying again. The RSVP card had 2 boxes, gladly accept, regretfully decline. I checked neither. I took a Sharpie and wrote in my own box, "Ballot box with check, may you find the piece you tried to deny others." Then I mailed it back. 2 weeks after that, my parents finally called me. Mom first. She opened with, "We didn't handle everything as well as we could have. Progress, I guess." I let her talk. She didn't exactly apologize, but she did say she missed me and that everyone's still talking about that dinner you hosted. Her tone made it sound like she was trying to both compliment and scold me at once. Then Dad got on the line. His voice was stiff but lower than usual. "I was too harsh," he said. "I didn't understand at the time. He stopped short of asking for forgiveness, but it was the first time he'd ever acknowledged fault in anything. I let the silence stretch for a bit. Then I said, "I'm not angry anymore. But I'm not coming back to the same table." "What does that mean?" my mother asked. "It means if you want a relationship with me moving forward, it has to be on new terms. I won't play the outsider anymore. I won't be the scapegoat. You either love all of me, or none of me." Silence. "Then, we'll think about that," my mom said. I replied, "Take your time." That was 6 months ago. Since then, I've stayed low contact. No more family group texts. No more invitations I didn't ask for. No more forced appearances at holidays where I'm seated next to someone who talks over me. But you know what? I see Noelle more now. She came to Durham last month and stayed in my guest room. We went to a live jazz show and drank wine on my balcony, and for the first time in forever, we didn't talk about what was broken. We just enjoyed being sisters. I sent Aunt Marian a golden aquamarine pin with a little handwritten note, for speaking when silence would have been easier. She mailed back a card that said simply, "For taking your seat at the head of your own table." So yeah. That's the end of it. No big, cruel vengeance. Just a woman who finally stopped waiting for an invitation, and built her own damn table. And she made it beautiful.